A few other lineages, but not many. BA2 does not contain the deletion at S6970. That's why, and is S gene target positive on PCR. Unlike the BA1, which is S gene target negative, because it does contain this deletion. The proportion of S gene target failure cases is now increasing, of course, as we've just predicted here. What's 28 and 28, whatever that is. Whatever it is, 56 or something. It's going to keep doubling every week, I think. As of the 24th of January, the proportion of S gene target failure cases in England was 4.4%, and a week before it had been 2.2%. So there we go. So a week after, we would expect it to be 8.8, and then take off from there. London already much higher, 9.5. Again, London leads the way, so 9.5. BA2 cases in London with S gene positivity, because they're not Delta anymore. North East region only 0.9, which has got a bit of catching up to do. So carrying on with the growth rate, the apparent growth advantage is currently substantial, of course, as they say. Secondary attack rates in household, BA2 secondary attack rate is 13.4%. Of other household members being infected once a primary index case enters the house. Other Omicron cases it was 10.3, so slightly higher. This data is not adjusted for vaccine status, so it reflects overall growth rather than transmissibility. So that's just the blind data, not taking vaccination into account at all. So we see a slight increase there. When we take vaccination into account, I suspect that difference will become greater, but we don't know that yet. Vaccine effectiveness after 25 weeks in preventing symptomatic disease is terrible. So BA1, if you've had 2 doses of vaccine after 25 weeks, 9% protection against symptomatic disease. BA2, slightly more, 13% protection against symptomatic disease. Now these are only based on small numbers yet, but it's looking positive. It's looking like BA2, we're going to have slightly more protection from our 2 doses of vaccine than we are with BA1. Vaccine effectiveness 2 weeks after the 3rd dose against symptomatic disease, BA1 63%, and again slightly higher with BA2 at 70%. Now the protection against hospitalisation, of course, is higher. That is the protection from symptomatic disease, so slightly more protection from the vaccines that we already have, which of course go way back to the original Wuhan B1 virus. That's what they're acting against. Slightly more protection, so it almost seems like BA2 has kind of evolved back to being a little bit closer to the original strain in terms of its immune profile.
Thank you.
BA1 and BA2 did not differ substantially in neutralization by serovaccinated individuals, so that's good. The BA2 would be a little bit better, but lab studies didn't really show that, is what they're saying. But the epidemiological data did show BA2 gives a little more, the vaccines give a little more protection against BA2. Omicron, BA1 in care homes, so the data we have for Omicron in care homes, so this is the B11529, the original Omicron BA1. There was rapid increase in SARS coronavirus 2 infection in care homes during December 2021. As we anticipated, there has not been an associated increase in hospital admissions. Such good news. No inference can be made regarding BA2 yet because we simply don't have enough numbers. I suspect we will not see an increased hospitalisation with BA2 either. Current wave of Omicron infection is unlikely to lead to a major surge in severe disease in care home populations. Excellent. With high levels of vaccine coverage and or actual immunity. And it has to be added somewhat less intrinsic pathogenicity, although we know that from other data, not from this data. Now, what are the great and the good saying about it? Let's hope they don't disagree with me too much. Jonathan Ball, molecular virologist, University of Nottingham. The key issue is whether this variant is associated with more severe disease and if it can escape immunity delivered by vaccines. Well, we've seen that it's not escaping, it's slightly better actually. The vaccines are slightly more effective. Early indicators suggest that the vaccine will provide similar levels of protection as we've seen for Omicron, so this is good news. Yeah, basically accept that. Or it might even be slightly better, as we've said. Whether or not it causes more severe disease will become apparent as more data is collected. yes, he's correct, but the early intimations are encouraging. But so far there is nothing in his early analysis for us to worry about unduly. So he's being very cautious. He's a professional scientist, of course, but he is saying, like we've been saying since we started looking at the South Africa, we've been saying this for about 6 weeks now, to be quite honest. We're a bit ahead of the game on this one, but it's now being substantiated by Professor Jonathan Ball, which of course is always very encouraging to me personally. Professor John Edmonds, epidemiologist at the School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Possible that BA2 could take over from the original Omicron strain in the next few weeks. Well, I wouldn't say it's possible, I'd say it's pretty well certain. We've seen it's doubling every 2 weeks. The question is, of course, will we run out of people to infect? Because people that have been infected with BA1 Omicron, I am expecting to be highly immune to BA2 Omicron, so it could actually run out of people before it's got time to reach 100 or 98% or whatever it might get up to. But we will see. It has done in Denmark, of course, as we know, so it will do in this country, it will do in the United States, it will do in Germany, it will do in France, it will do in Canada, it will do in Australia. It's going to be the same everywhere. It's outcompeting. Not anything like as quickly as Omicron outcompeted Delta, but nevertheless, BA2 is outcompeting BA1. The good news is that at present there's no evidence to suggest that it's more severe than Omicron, correct? But well, that's because it is Omicron, of course. The Omicron is the BA1 and the BA2. They are both Omicron. And the UK Health Security Agency analysis shows that vaccine appears to be as effective as against BA1. So there you go. As we said, do check out all these references for yourself. Everything I've said is there. Wouldn't want to be fact-checked by the BBC or anything like that, would we? Yeah. This is what we predicted. So to summarise, I mean, a couple of weeks ago we said there's a new variant around BA2. Is it a type of Omicron? Yes. Is it going to become the most prevalent type of Omicron? We said yes. A couple of weeks ago, was I worried about it? No. I'm still not worried about it. In fact, it's even more encouraging as we collect more data. So we are in the end stage of this pandemic because this is giving immunity to millions of people. As we speak, we've just got to get over the hospitalisation problem for the next few weeks. Way less than Delta, because so many people are being infected all at the same time. That is what the issue is. That, and of course, the comorbidities in our Western populations. Okay, hope that was helpful and interesting. So I think we'll probably leave that one for now because we're not too worried about it. But we will know from time to time as BA2 does replace BA1. And also keeps Delta away. Thank you for watching.
Как добавить яркости лучшим моментам нашей жизни? Риттер Спорт дарит удивительное разнообразие насыщенных вкусов.
Hey guys, today we're going to talk about vitamin B deficiency, okay? This is actually...
Hey everyone, this lesson is on an introduction to vitamin B1 and vitamin...
видишь?
Vitamin B1 deficiency. So we're going to talk about what vitamin B
Видишь, за рубли только открывают, видишь, рубли. Сейчас проверим. Просто
B1 is. We're also going to talk about where we get it, how it's absorbed, what it actually does in our body, and we're also going to talk about some of the causes of vitamin B1 deficiency along with some of the symptoms of vitamin B1 deficiency. So vitamin B1 or thiamine has also been known as inurin. So that was another word for vitamin B1. Vitamin B1 is actually a water-soluble vitamin, and vitamin B1 is actually one of the B vitamins. There's actually 7 other ones, so there's 8 B vitamins in total. And what's important to recognize about vitamin B1 is that it has a very,
для
very
людей,
short...
которые не хотят быть профессиональными, наверное, да. Для всех людей, то есть, да. Ну или включая их, но это будет уже там, да. Ну, типа того, да.
term storage, which means
То есть,
that
которые не хотят за музыку получать деньги. Ну или так тоже, мне не касается. Ну, наверное. Ну, да, начхать,
you have to keep replacing it often. So replacement comes in the form of dietary sources. We're going to talk about those dietary sources in a moment. Now, why do we need vitamin B1? We're going to talk about this more in detail in the next slide, but we really need vitamin B1 because it's required for energy metabolism. It acts as a cofactor for proper enzymatic functioning. So it is required for certain enzymes to work properly. And some of those enzymes are involved in carbohydrate metabolism. As I mentioned before, we're going to talk about this more in detail in the next slide. Where do we actually get vitamin B1? So I talked about we get it from dietary sources, but what kind of dietary sources? Well, it's important to note that almost all foods contain at least some vitamin B1. But the foods with the highest amount of vitamin B1 include chicken, pork, soybean, nuts, brown rice, peas, whole grains, and other fortified grains like cereals. So some grains have actually had vitamin B1 added to them, so you get extra vitamin B1 content from those fortified grains. And the recommended daily intake of vitamin B1 or thiamine is actually 1.1 to 1.2 milligrams per day for adults. So generally speaking, it's 1.1 for females, 1.2 for males. And during pregnancy, we need 1.4 milligrams per day, so you need a little higher during pregnancy. We'll see why that is later on. So why do we need thiamine to begin with? There's actually a few enzymes I'm going to talk about here. One of them is transketolase. So transketolase requires thiamine as a cofactor, and it's involved in the pentose phosphate pathway. Another enzyme that's required is pyruvate dehydrogenase, and this enzyme is involved in glycolysis, so breakdown of glucose, so carbohydrate metabolism, very important. And another enzyme that it's required for is alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, and this is involved in the Krebs cycle. So essentially gathering NADH and FADH2 from acetyl-CoA. So energy.
Кое. Ну да чё ты мне мозги-то кочкаешь, да?
Если вы хотите сменить душный офис на творческую и, главное, востребованную профессию, то досмотрите это видео до конца. Наверняка вы уже рассматривали варианты интернет-профессий. Однако вы понимаете, что если идти в программирование,
So, there are two possibilities that you are now watching this video. The first possibility is that you've passed your level 5 exam and you are now ready to move on to level 6, in which case I say congratulations. The other reason might be because you've clicked on this video by accident, in which case I say hello. Now, today is an exciting day. To start off today's lesson, we are going to begin by discussing enharmonic equivalents. An enharmonic equivalent is when you have two notes that are spelt differently but represent the same pitch, and it can be very confusing, for example, when I tried to explain it in the piano video, because you end up playing the same note on the piano, but on the staff they look differently. So we're going to explore what that looks like. All 7 sharps, oeve. Step 2 is to write the tonic. The tonic of A sharp minor is A sharp. I'm going to start low down here. And remember, we are doing a melodic scale, so this has to be ascending. On the website and practice everything I've taught you so far. I did it myself and I designed it to look almost, well, as similar as possible to the questions you would find on your actual level 8 exam so that you're prepared. Now we're going to do 2 or 3 questions together so you can see how everything we learned at the piano and at the whiteboard comes together to complete your exam. Question 1. Add the missing bar lines. Remember to add a double bar line at the end. We're just going to add 1 bar line and you can do the rest yourself. The time signature is 7/8. We know there are several different groupings you can use, but I've specified in this bracket up here that you should be grouping your bars into groups of 3 plus 2 plus 2. So the beams are designed to reflect this subdivision, which should help you see where the bar lines go. So first, we should see 3/8 notes plus 2/8 notes plus 2/8 notes. Let's see if we can do that.
Покупай.
Here's 3/8 notes. That's that for
Да,
sure. Here's 2/16 notes and another 8th note. Now I know that 2/16 notes form 1/8 note. So there's also 2/8 notes here. So there's a group of 3, there's a group of 2. Now I have a triplet. Now we learned in level 5 that a triplet is worth 1 note value greater than what you see. So because I'm seeing an 8th note triplet here, I know that this is equal to a quarter note.
Ну да, ну да, поэтому.
How many 8th notes are in a quarter note? 2. So here's a group of 3, there's a group of 2, and then there's another group of 2. 3 plus 2 plus 2, that's 7, so our first bar line will go here. You can figure out the rest yourself. Now let's look at question 2. Question 2 says, add the time signature and bracketed groupings to each staff. Let's do the first one together. Now the first thing we should do is choose which bar we're going to start counting up beats, and we should choose the simplest bar. This one makes me feel good, so I'm going to go for the first bar. This one feels the simplest to me. You can do the other ones. So I see quarter notes, 8ths, and 16ths. I have to decide what I'm going to count.
400 рублей в месяц.
I have a good feeling about quarter notes.
Ну,
Okay?
так что, ну да,
Because I
зачем?
see
Ну,
lots
что
of
за-
even numbered groups. So I'm going to go ahead and start counting quarter
Шмой
notes. There's
тебе
one
надо.
quarter note here. These 2 8th notes make another quarter note.
Ну, надо платку.
These 2
да
8th notes
пошли.
make another quarter note. I
Да.
have 3 quarter notes.
Вот оно, да.
These 4 16ths make a quarter note. And then there's another quarter note here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarter notes.
Ну, да, уже какая-то есть.
5, 4. Does that look
Ну,
like a
это
reasonably
ясно, да.
familiar time signature? I think so. Let's just check the other bars just in case. 1 quarter note, 2 quarter notes, 3 quarter notes, 4, 5. 1 quarter note, 2 quarter notes, 3, 4, 5. I think it's in 5, 4. So we found the easiest looking thing. We decided what we were going to assume the beat was. In this case it was quarter notes, and we counted. You can do the rest
Ну, вот
yourself.
это и было самое, да.
Now, question 3, everybody's least favorite question. Let's do one of the weirder
Ну, да,
ones.
да, это есть.
Let's do this
Да, это
5-8
есть.
over here.
Да, это есть.
Since 5-8 is exclusively a level 8 RCM question. But remember on your exam, just because in level 8 we practiced hybrid meter, they're going to test you on everything you've learned since level 5. So don't go into your level 8 exam expecting to only see hybrid meters. You have to do everything. Okay, so let's do this part over here, 5-8. Now the first thing we have to do is decide how we're going to group 5-8. Are we going to go 3 plus 2 or 2 plus 3? I'm going to go for 3 plus 2, and I'm going to make sure that I don't forget by writing in 2 plus 3 up here, and that my examiner knows what I'm doing. So I've written my subdivision bracket up there. Now the first thing we always do is write the groupings underneath so we can clearly see. So 3 8th notes plus 2 8th notes. There's my 3 8th notes underneath, so I don't get lost. And there's my 2 8th notes underneath, so I don't get lost. 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay? And then the next thing is we always work from the outside of the bar to the inside. Let's start here.